We will know our disinformation program is complete when everything the public believes is false. William Casey, director of the CIA, in his first address to his staff in 1981. Doublethink is when one believes in two contradictory beliefs at the same time. It is the opposite of cognitive dissonance. The ability to tell lies and genuinely believe them, and to forget any facts that are inconvenient. Advancing doublethink is the elite's defense mechanism from any challenge to their power. The elite know that propaganda will eventually be exposed. But if they can make you lie to yourself, and that was accepted as truth, then they can form a new reality. Doublethink produces an intellectual blindness to a contradiction. Doublethink is simply spinning a story to make the government look good by deliberately lying, but then simultaneously believing the new story as exactly how it happened. Most Americans would look at Baghdad Bob and laugh, knowing that what he is telling you is a lie. And yet we believe these same lies just because they come from our State Department. Think about how the Iraqi citizens would look at Baghdad Bob being the spokesperson for one of the most tyrannical regimes in the world. And yet the typical Iraqi would probably look at us and think that we're crazy for believing our politicians. This doublethink is done not only to mislead the populace, but more importantly those that work for the government. This is important because if the regime participants suddenly get conscious or change consciousness, the whole system would collapse because nobody would be there to run the system. An example would be just the military. They have to believe that they're fighting for freedom, but in reality what they're doing is enslaving populations for private profit.
Walking along Aleppo's river quake this morning, the bodies rarely stopped. Pulled from the muddy water, young, shot at point blank in the head, too gruesome to show here. Whether they floated into or were killed in this rebel territory, nobody knew. But they kept coming, 65, then 81, as the river held forth another massacre.
The people can always be brought to the bidding of its leaders. Tell them that they are being attacked, and denounce peacemakers for a lack of patriotism and for exposing the country to danger. Hermann Göring.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, attack of the drones. The American government is launching a new war. Some of this country's 7,500 drones may be about to take off with new targets in their sights. Today, Niger's ambassador to the United States tells CNN his government has agreed to allow the American military to place drones in his country in an effort to gather intelligence on neighboring Mali, Algeria, and Libya, 3 spots where we've seen a recent explosion and al-Qaeda-linked attacks on Americans.
If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, or military consequences of the lie. It is thus vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus, by the extension, the state is the greatest enemy of the truth. Joseph Goebbels.
Lieutenant General Deptula, some people might say, who cares about drones? A lot of people in this country say, look, we don't want to risk American lives. If we're going to have to fly over and kill quote-unquote bad guys with drones, so be it. Let's do it. And there's people on the left and there's people on the right who agree about that. They say, what are the Pakistanis, or in this case, the Africans? What are they going to do about it? But you know what? Someone might one day, right? It could cause someone to launch another terrorist attack. Or some of the other 70 countries that have drones right now, but most of them cannot arm the drones, might be able to arm drones. Say Iran.
Listen, do I like torture? No, I think torture is probably bad. I think I don't like drones per se, but they make America safer. At the end of the day, this is a movie. It's drama. I think all this hullabaloo by these 3 senators, 2 of which are Democrats, that are very good Democrats, John McCain, an American hero, who was tortured, I think it's all a bunch of do about nothing at the end of the day. It's a movie. It's a drama. It was not at all meant to be a documentary.
I mean, you're right that it's a movie, but it's supposed to be a record of what happened. But the drone program is not making us safer. We're killing lots and lots of people who had nothing to do with our who are not actually enemy combatants.
I appreciate that.
And what happened in the torture program did not make us safer. It gives Al-Qaeda fodder. It gives them a way to recruit. It confirms that our people, when they are captured, they will be treated horribly. It wrecks the soul of America. It taints our image around the world. It doesn't get us actionable intelligence just pragmatically.
And Jimmy, I watched the torture scene in this movie, and as Jane Mayer points out in The New Yorker, at no point in the film do we see any of the debate or argument about torture that happened within the American intelligence community.
That's right.
So how is that not just simply a whitewash of the issue?
Well, because it's a movie.
Sorry, you keep saying that, Jimmy, but at the beginning of the movie it says this. This movie is based upon first-hand accounts of actual events. If it's only a movie, then don't put that up as a rider.
But I think the movie is saying that it isn't right. That's my point. I don't think that. Listen, I go see Harry Potter movies. That doesn't mean that everything in there.
Stop it, Jimmy. Harry Potter has no place in this conversation. Harry Potter is a fantastical movie from J.K. Rowling's imagination.
Torre, let me just say this. At the end of the day, we're at war with people that killed 3,000 people on 9/11, that killed people in our embassies and in our diplomatic security places. At the end of the day, I don't give a damn how our American government keeps America safer. I just want them to do it, and I don't want to know about it.
But
and by the way, I think I'm in the majority of American people.
But do you want us to be safer, or do you want to feel good beating people up? Because those are the two choices.
I don't want to know what the American CIA is doing. I don't want to know. I just want to be safer. And I think a majority of Americans would say that. That doesn't make me a bad American.
No.
We are an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. And while you're studying that reality judiciously as you will, we will act again, creating other new realities, which you can study too, and that's how things are going to sort out. We're history's actors, and you, all of you, will just be left to study what we do. Karl Rove. The Nazi theory specifically denies that there is such a thing as the truth. The implied objective of this line of thought is a nightmare world in which the leader, or some ruling clique, controls not only the future but the past. If the leader says of such and such an event, it never happened, well, it never happened. If he says 2 and 2 are 5, well, 2 and 2 are 5. This prospect frightens me more than bombs. George Orwell.
The Air Force and the Army all send troops to, say, Somalia for 100 days each. I'm going to call that 4 times 100 equals 400 cumulative combined crisis response days from the services. Billable hours, which I think is the best measurement. This is your expeditionary theater for the 21st century. It's not going away. You can vote Bush Cheney out of office. It'll still be there. So president after president, administration after administration, Republican and Democrat, are going to have to deal with this. And one of the first things we discover in this global war on terrorism, we got a lot of different cooks working this broth. Southern Command, European Command, Central Command, Pacific Command. Basically precinct captains. In what is logically described as largely an undercover war. And we're seeing a redefinition of strategic command as a global strike force. The beginnings of a matrixed organization. Warfighting is going to migrate in the direction of these two commands, previously considered just supporting. Now leads in their own right. In fact, a premium on forward deterrence and strike. We got to stay out there. We have to avoid what we've been doing for the last 15 years, which is sucking the troops back home. So are the boys coming home? No, they're never coming home.
On March 19, 2003, the U.S. and its allies went to war against the Iraqi strongman Saddam Hussein. A few months of media campaign was enough to make Iraq an imminent threat to peace and security. Now the war was inevitable, and saving the world from Iraq's weapons of mass destruction was a burden upon the shoulders of the U.S. Army and its allies. No stone was left unturned, but no WMDs were found. The main reason for the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq turned to be just a figment of imagination.
It turns out we were all wrong, probably, in my judgment, and that is most disturbing.
Dramatic increases in infant mortality, cancer, and leukemia in the Iraqi city of Fallujah, which was bombarded by U.S. Marines in 2004, exceed those reported by survivors of the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, according to a new study. It's been estimated that about 1.5 million Iraqis have died due to U.S. invasion since 2003.
People will accept lies if their lives get better. As their lives get worse, they will inevitably ask questions. And as their lives disintegrate, they will start looking for both answers and suspects. Mike Rupert.
Throughout the summer and fall of 2004, the U.S. military conducted 2 major assaults, which flattened the Iraqi city of Fallujah and displaced most of the city's 300,000 population. In the assault, U.S. commanders largely treated Fallujah as a free fire zone to try to reduce casualties among their own troops. British officers were appalled by the lack of concern for civilian casualties. The U.S. commander who ordered this devastating use of firepower did not consider it significant enough to mention it in his daily report to the U.S. general in command.
Winston, you know how the party keeps power. Now tell me what.
You are ruling us for our own good, because we are not fit to govern ourselves.
That was stupid, Winston. I want intelligence. The party seeks power for its own sake, not as a means but an end. Power over the human mind, and power over all matter, climate, disease, the laws of gravity. Because we control the mind. Reality is inside the skull, Winston. We control the laws of nature. The stars are not light years, but a few kilometers away. If we wished, we could blot them out. Here, that is power. In our world, there will be no love but the love of Big Brother, no laughter but the laugh of triumph over a defeated enemy, no art, no science, no literature, no enjoyment, but always and only, Winston, there will be the thrill of power. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Их военный бюджет в абсолютных величинах почти в 25 раз больше, чем у России. Вот это и называется в оборонной сфере их дом, их крепость. И молодцы, молодцы. Но это значит, что и мы с вами должны строить свой дом, свой собственный дом, крепким, надежным. Потому что мы же видим, что в мире происходит. Но мы же это видим. Как говорится, товарищ волк знает, кого кушать. Кушает и никого не слушает. И слушать, судя по всему, не собирается.
Everything is fine today. That is our illusion. Voltaire. All of our lives we've been fed the lie that somehow we are better than everybody else. We believe this so much that we feel it's morally acceptable to stick our noses in everybody's business. We have 777 military bases all over the world. Our currency is the world's reserve currency. We control most of the international organizations like the UN, IMF, and World Bank. We control the world's shipping lanes. Our media is the most popular and sought-after propaganda in the world. Our corporations harvest the resources that our empire provides. This has led to the feeling that the American way of life is not negotiable. We print debt and we consume. This way of life was only possible by the very real and hard sacrifices made by Americans long dead.
Now, we were interested in Y2K, and we were interested in the tech crash, because we could see the new rules coming in the financial sector. But if you talk to people on Wall Street, they'll tell you there's a financial panic roughly every 13, 14 years in the United States, a crash. Why? Because you get far enough away from the last crash, pretty soon you only have stockbrokers, which is a young person's game, who can't remember what that last crash looked like. And the further they get from that last crash, they start talking about new rules, new ways of doing things, new realities, which we typically discover after the crash involve lying, cheating, stealing. And you get a rule set reset. So we could see that with the tech crash. But that was only going to impact the financial sector. And again, it was regular. We were looking for something really unprecedented that would impact the political and security fields. I think we get it with 9/11. And I could draw a line I've been thinking about for 5 years. Lots of new rule sets since 9/11. I could still pick up a New York Times, a Wall Street Journal, a Washington Post, and in every single day find you a story about some amazing new rule set that redefines the nature of privacy, how we handle information, definitions of criminal behavior, definitions of un-American behavior, new definitions of war. How can I tell we're in a rule set reset? We can't even decide what to call the enemy or where we can try them.
You can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. Ayn Rand. America is still deep in denial, which is the first stage of the awakening. This denial will be wiped away when the dollar collapses. For now, the economy is still functioning and food and fuel are still available. The lights turn on and American Idol is still the center of attention. Americans still have the illusion of wealth and normalcy. They are still stuck in the false left-right paradigm and think that some other sock puppet will turn things around. When the dollar collapses, all American illusions will collapse with it. Deep denial will turn into deep anger. The violence I expect in all urban areas in the United States will make all other global riots pale in comparison.
There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media news, all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back, so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club.
I was having breakfast this morning. I thought, how hard would it be to find? Page 1, business section. Ongoing story. Database on U.S. visitors set for huge expansion. The creation of a virtual border. Price tag, they're guessing $15 billion over 10 years. Did we need this before 9/11? Apparently. But 9/11 crystallized the sense of a rule set gap. And so we have been filling rule set gaps with great abandon ever since. Patriot Act is a rule set reset. Preemption strategy is a serious rule set change. The biggest rule set we've created in national security since we invented the concept of mutual assured destruction and spent about a decade selling it to the Soviets.
By the way, speaking of American values, aren't we about due to start bombing some small country that only has a marginally effective air force? Seems to me like we're a couple of weeks overdue to drop high explosives on helpless civilians. People who have no argument with us whatsoever. I think we ought to be out there doing what we do best, gang, making big holes in other people's countries. I hate to be repetitious, but God, we are a warlike lot, you know? We can't stand not to be fucking with somebody. We couldn't wait for that Cold War to be over, could we? Just couldn't wait for that Cold War to be over so we could go and play with our toys in the sand. Go play with our toys in the sand. And when we're not invading some sovereign nation or setting it on fire from the air, which is more fun, then we're usually declaring war on something here at home. Did you ever notice that? We love to do that, don't we? We love to declare war on things here in America. Anything we don't like about ourselves, we have to declare war on it. Don't do anything about it. We just declare war on it. We got a war. It's the only metaphor we have in our public discourse for solving a problem. It's called declaring a war. We got a war on poverty, the war on crime, war on litter, the war on cancer, the war on drugs. But you ever notice there's no war on homelessness, is there? Nah, no war on homelessness. You know why? There's no money in that problem. There's no money in that problem. Nobody stands. It's true. Nobody stands to get rich off of that problem. You could find a solution to homelessness where the corporate swine and the politicians could steal a couple of $1 million each. You'd see the streets of America begin to clear up pretty goddamn quick. I'll guarantee you that. I will guarantee you that.
You cannot solve a problem from the same consciousness that created it. You must learn to see the world anew. Albert Einstein. Think about all that is wrong with the world today. Massive debts, endless wars, encroaching government power, too big to fails, systemic unemployment, and a general sense of fear and depression. You cannot solve these problems with the same consciousness as the ones that created this mess. You cannot cure a debt problem with more debt, restructured debt, or bailouts. You cannot solve war with more war, cyber war, proxy wars, or covert wars. You cannot control the power of the government with new politicians, laws, or lobbying. You cannot solve unemployment with more funding for education, more regulations, or strikes. In order to solve these and all other problems that plague our society, you need to create another consciousness.
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
The men that own and control our world know that so long as humanity either actively or passively has the same consciousness as them, their power is secured. They know that as long as humanity remains short-sighted, narcissistic, meddling little people searching for instant gratification, those at the top have nothing to worry about. It is only when we become caring, logical, and independent people with the opposite consciousness that we can effect real change upon this world. Think of when you were a teenager trying to establish your independence. You might have huffed and puffed around the house to get what you wanted, and depending on what kind of parent you had, that might have worked. When you think about it, you didn't really want a car or to stay out late as much as you wanted your independence from your parents' paradigm, to do what you wanted to do, to make your own mistakes, to be free from others controlling you. This is what we want in all of humanity. To live our lives, to love who we want to love, to do what we want to do without others interfering in our lives. Most teenage rebellion is misguided and often never really results in any true freedom, since they never change the consciousness of the dependent state. And parents never solve the problem by not changing the consciousness from the controlling state. Even the most well-intentioned parent really has no clue of what will make their child happy. So why bother trying to control them? As long as they're not in mortal danger, parents should just let go. The child can only begin to find out what will make them happy by following their passions independent of their parents. Slamming the door, yelling, or the quiet treatment will not result in you gaining any real power. The only way for you to gain true freedom of your parents is to become independent of them, to think and provide for yourself without their help or even approval. That is what becoming an adult is all about. Your parents probably did not respect you as an adult until you acted independently from them. Even that might not do it. But regardless if your parents respect you for your independence, you know that you can survive and thrive outside of their paradigm, and all of their attempts to control your life are now rendered useless. Some parents might still try to control you, but they usually get relegated to holidays and only in a symbolic fashion, because you know you don't have to listen to them anymore. Don't believe them, don't fear them, don't ask anything of them. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Think about what you are really upset about in the world today. It could be war, taxes, the government encroachment on our privacy, or whatever. You'll waste time hacking at the branches and not the root of the problem. What you really want is your freedom and independence and to be left alone. The fundamental reason why any formalized group effort like Occupy Wall Street or the Tea Party will fail is that it is a collective effort against a collective problem, one of the same consciousness. You cannot beg for power. You need to be independent of power. Sending good people into reform a state is like sending virgins in to reform a whorehouse. Anonymous. The game is rigged, and nothing will change with elections, protests, editorials, Occupy movements, or Tea Parties. They are important, but they will not change the system. The boomers tried to rebel in the 60s against all that was wrong in the world.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
They lack the mature wisdom to guide them to the root of their problems and to become a real threat to those that seek to control them. If you want to become a real threat to the system, act independently of the system. This is essentially what a responsible citizen must do to a repressive government. Slamming your door at your parents' house is the same as a million-man march. You think it is a show of power, but those that are in charge think it's a cute but meaningless exertion of power and do not fear it in the least. Let them march all they want, so long as they pay their taxes. Alexander Haig. You must physically, financially, politically, intellectually, emotionally, and even spiritually remove yourself from their control. The most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Stephen Biko. You cannot change the world to make yourself happy or free. You must change yourself to make the world happy and free. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. As long as humanity believes that they can change the world to make themselves happy or free, we will continue to fall into this trap over and over again, generation after generation. It is insanity to think that you can change the world to make yourself happy or free. You can't do it on a personal level, and you certainly cannot do it on a national or a global level. Think about your own family. You share the same race, religion, education, and so on, yet there's constant disagreement. I can't even control my 3-year-old son. So what makes us think that we can somehow change the world with 7 billion people with different outlooks and motives on life? No matter what you try to do to affect change in the world, you inevitably run across others who do not share your same vision. And because they come from different experiences, education, and awareness as you are, they will naturally become an opposite force. They will naturally push against any effort you have, and this ultimately devolves into a middle-of-the-road solution that leaves no real change, a lot of wasted time, energy, and money. This also gives power to the parasitical middlemen that manipulate both sides to their advantage. True independence can only come from within. We knew this on some level when we were teenagers, but we fell for what the world and our masters offered as freedom. College degrees, big houses, fast cars, consumer products, shallow relationships, or gurus. This inevitably leads to debt, frustration, and an empty hole in our lives, which we usually do not fully realize until we are way past our prime, wasting the best part of our life. The only thing in the world that you really can control is you. So stop trying to change others. Be the change that you want to be in the world. It is very important to know that we also have no right to enforce our version of freedom and happiness onto others. No matter how much you feel you are right, people must come to their own decisions on their own terms and timetable. When we focus our time, energy, and money on working on our own personal freedom, we will not only see real effective change, we will show the way for millions of others to follow. When you are truly free, you'll be strong, happy, and independently powerful. Your power does not come at the expense of others or control of others, and therefore cannot be stopped.
Menarik seluruh rekening saya dan saya jadikan dinar dan dirham. Sekitar 20-25%. Maka nilai aset saya tetap bertahan, tapi nilai rupiahnya semakin tinggi. Jadi itulah saya bisa menyelamatkan aset-aset saya. Jadi saya bisa membeli bahan bangunan, pendidikan dan lain-lain dengan tanpa mengurangi nilai aset. Bagaimana kalau saya tetap disimpan uang di bank, maka saya akan kehilangan banyak.
Marah nggak Mas sama sistem bank-bank sekarang ini?
Saya tidak marah karena itu sudah terorganisasi dengan baik. Tapi kenapa kita serahkan kebebasan kita, pola hidup kita diatur oleh orang lain yang kita tidak inginkan? Jadi itulah makanya dinar dirham ini saya sebutkan sebagai suatu gerakan moral kebebasan individu yang mutlak.
It's hard to get an exact figure at the moment, but in the last 10 years probably it's more than 50,000 coin has been distributed. There is an equality of exchange, equal to equal. In other words, it can only be met by exchanging commodity with commodity. So if you want to exchange a head of goat, then you need or you must get as an exchange other commodity that has a similar value, and that can be best served by gold or silver. Paper money doesn't serve that equality, because one party lose an asset, let's say a head of gold, and the other party just get a piece of paper which has no value. When we minted the dinar for the first time 9 years ago, it was only worth 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. These 4 pieces, about 400,000 rupiah. Today, you need 15 pieces of this paper money, 1,500,000 rupiah to get 1 dinar. 1,500 years ago, 1 dinar equals to 2 head of gold. And today, if you go everywhere in the world, you can buy 2 heads of gold with 1 gold dinar, right? While a coin of dirham, the silver coin, you can have 1 head of chicken. Some people see it like a story of this king with no clothes, right? So when everybody see that the king was wearing very beautiful clothes, but in fact he wears no clothes, until a small boy said, look, the king has no clothes. It's the same thing with this paper money, that we are told that this is wealth, which has a values on it, until someone says, look, this is just a piece of paper, no value on it. So, right, so if you cut like this, look, 100,000 and it's gone. Where's the 100,000? And magically, if you put a cello type on it, the 100,000 rupiah came back. Only by putting a cello type on it. People will accept it again. It's very magical. It's magic. This one is the real one. The current system is not only unsustainable, but it's collapsing. So we have to be prepared with other system which can be sustainable and more stable. The banking system is the crime, and the bankers are the criminal. The current system is taken for granted as the only system available. It is not only unsustainable, it is unjust, and it's collapsing. So we have to find the better alternative. We have it. In Islam, you have to prevent wealth to be circulated among the rich. And what is happening today is that the wealth, the real wealth, which is gold and silver, are only sitting amongst the wealth vault, while the people are getting the worthless paper money. Now what we are doing is reverse the process. We return the paper money to the banking system and take out the gold and circulate it to the hands of the people. Now the people will have the real wealth within their hands.
Ini bukan sebuah revolusi, tapi ini kembali lagi ke fitrah manusia. Jadi manusia disuruh memilih, jadi tidak dipaksakan. Jadi dia memilih antara yang berlaku dengan yang tidak berlaku, antara yang stabil dengan yang tidak stabil, antara tetap dengan inflasi. Jadi mereka memiliki dua pilihan. Ini adalah untuk sebagai gerakan freedom and justice.